welcome one and all under the sound of my voice to the Umbrella Entertainment Radio Channel. This is the 1T.R.E Radio Show. I am your host, 1T.R.E. Here at the Umbrella Entertainment Channel, we're dedicated to bringing you content that involves true revolutionary, evolutionary thought processes. And by that we mean we're just thinking what they call outside of the box, outside of the normal way of thinking. But we're using that normal way of thinking as a basis to explore other alternative thought. So, for my very first show, I want to delve into the modern relationships between men and women. Now, this topic is going to build on itself. And what you'll find is not only are we going to touch on the modern relationships and the modern ideologies associated relationships today, but we're going to touch on some of those historical traditional factors that maybe got us here today. So, without further ado, let's jump right in this thing. Now, the very first thing that really comes to mind when I'm delving into relationship status between men and women is really just looking at the men, you know what I mean? Now, there are many shows, as I scour the internet and I look at the internet and I establish my basis for my arguments, and I'm looking at these different podcasts out here, looking at these different shows out here, how they structure themselves. But I see there's a lot of attention on what they call the modern woman, which really strikes me because there are a lot of men producing this content. And just from a general standpoint and just from a base standpoint, it seems to me that men are frustrated with the way women govern themselves as opposed to sexual relationships and what women find interesting, what women find to be dominating, or what they find to be alluring. It seems like a lot of men have a problem with what women choose to, associate themselves with in those areas. Me, on the other hand, I take the approach of this. It seems like today, what society is definitely lacking is in the amount of men who are standing up to be leaders, right? And how I associate that with the modern relationships is, I can remember ever since I was a young man, probably from the age of about, let's say, as far back I can remember, let's say 7 years old. You know what I mean? From that early age, all I can remember, the bulk of my experience of being taught of what a man is, and all around that concept of conquering everything that you set out to do in life. You conquer your job, you conquer resources to bring home to the family, you even conquer the woman that you're with. Now, I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but just hang with me. In that base concept of conquering, you were even taught to conquer the woman that you wanted to be with, or the woman that you hope to attain. So just even looking at basic concepts of like persistence, or like approaching a woman, and this woman may not show interest in you, but you were taught as a man that you show persistence, and you come at that woman in a strong, assertive type of way, then she can't help but to fall for you. And I think that premise in conquering and doing all of these sort of socially accepted norms and socially accepted roles in society, and practicing all of that, you sort of get life misconstrued in thinking, okay, that is the power of being a man, my absurdity, my aggressiveness in conquering. But I tend to think that, yes, why that is an important aspect and an important concept of being a man is being a conqueror, I think that there is a animalistic approach that we all have. You know, when you look out into nature, there's that approach. You know what I mean? It's kill or be killed. You know, it's the strongest to survive. You know what I mean? The weakest shall be eaten type of mentality when you look at nature. So that concept, you know what I mean, is definitely needed to keep the ecosystem alive, because there's a replication, right? There's a cycle, there's a circle of life. But when it comes to human beings, I think us being the most highest form of nature that God has created, and being the most evolved form of nature that God has created, I think that we are now called to not only behave in our animalistic nature of conquering, but to be called more into our evolved sense of conquering. To like now, yes, we understand the method of taking and ravishing and going out and conquering this earth and taking what's ours. But we can do it in a concept where not only do we satisfy ourselves, but we now satisfy communities and organizations and family units and even friendships around us. We nourish as well as conquering. And I'm hope I'm putting that in a as eloquently for anyone to understand. But these are my thoughts as I'm processing this in a real way. So now, back like I said, the concept of conquering and how that relates to the relationships of man and woman today. With that whole essence of being a conqueror and coming out into the world, the most prominent view seems to be aiming its attention at women and how the modern woman is running with a whole mentality, right? And it really makes me scratch my head. It really makes me scratch my head because, like I said, I remember my experience as a young man. And you know what I mean? At 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, I mean, how much are you going to know? Even when you're growing into your more teen years of 15, 16, when you start wanting to explore that sexual side and get in touch with that animalistic sexual side that you have, and at the same time you're an involved being, but if you're not having educational, concise, intelligent conversations about sex with an informed human being, whether it be a close human being or be a teacher at school or anyone that would been accepted in your life or society as that being that human being, if you're not having those conversations, you're gonna explore and you're gonna learn. And when it comes to men, yeah, we're taught to go out there and just, have your way with women. Just take your way. Have sex with 1, 2, 3, 4 women. Hey, that's what a man's supposed to do. It's a sign of your virility as a man. But we teach the young ladies that, you're supposed to be kind of pious with that. You're supposed to be very debonair with your sexuality and don't explore. And and my thing is, I'm not opposing a contrary view to either. But what I'm saying is this: when I'm looking at that concept and how we teach ourselves from a young age and what's fed into our psyche, our subconscious as a young age, it makes me wonder, why don't we teach our men to guard their sexuality in the same way we teach our young ladies to guard their sexuality? And then why, when the young ladies explore their sexuality in the way that we teach our young men to explore their sexuality, they're looked at as whores and hoes, sluts, skeezers, what have you. And the men are looked at as pimps, players, you know what I mean, upright human beings, you know what I mean, just being a man. As I stated before, it's going to get deep. This conversation is going to take on very, very many different levels. But as we start in this, I'm setting the basis right now, okay? I'm setting the basis to let you know, okay, where we're going, how I'm starting with this, what we're looking at, and giving you the build up of the interaction between modern men and relationships now and women. So like I said, as we're starting back talking about how men were just taught to be this ravenous, just explore the world sexually when it comes to sex as a young man. It just sits in my mind as I explore that concept and I think to myself, okay, why aren't men encouraged to, be prideful and take their seed seriously? And not to be out here just spreading your seed frivolously amongst the world, proving that you're a man. Because it seems like if you behave in that manner, then you're more of a man. You're now using not only your carnal, animalistic sense, but you're now using your more evolved sense to think wisely. Now, even in using that more evolved sense, you still want to experience life. Because as a sidebar, my interpretation of life is this. And I think the true purpose of life for all of us, we all have our own individual purposes for life. But I think the true purpose of life for each and every one of us is to live life and to live life to its fullest, whatever that means to you. And with that being said, there's an experience of life that we all are on this journey. While we're on that journey, we're going to go through things sexually. We're going to have sexual partners and we're going to learn from that. And your perception, however you were raised and however you were brought up, your perception of life and however you see the world is going to determine your activities in that quadrant. Let me further explain. As a young man, if I were to have been in an environment where, I started out being taught, hey man, go out there and just have sex as many women you want to. That's how being a man is supposed to be done. And I just run out there and I just had baby mamas here and there, and I was just exploring myself sex with women, and I just had hundreds of women under my belt. Like I said, I would be looking at it as a man like, hey, he's just being a man. He's making dumb decisions, but hey, I would not be looked at in society as a slut and just an embarrassment to women when I come around women. But my point is, maybe men should start looking at men like that, because you're not behaving with a purpose. You're only behaving to satisfy your animalistic sense and just trying to seek a pleasure. It's just a beautiful thing that the Spirit of God has embedded in the human being to be able to not only operate in a carnal sense, but to actually being able to evolve himself, but to be able to tap into an inner spiritual God that can lead him out of a false programming. Yeah, deep stuff, right? Deep stuff. So I'm setting you up. I'm setting up the premise, because you're probably like, okay, when are we going to get to this whole thing about the modern relationships between men and women? Well, I'm setting up the premise, like I said, because in my opinion, what I want to do first, as we build on this concept, is speak strictly to men. Speak strictly to the men that I've so much been around all my life and experienced for almost 40 years. I want to speak to the men because the men in society, I do believe, carry the torch as leaders. Not to say that our women can't lead. Oh, no. I would never, ever make that mistake to saying that our women cannot lead. But as men, because of our physical makeup in this world, we tap into, like I said, that carnal, conquering nature of knowing that the men's physical makeup is more pronounced and more made to get out here into this world and be real and create. Yes, that male stature, that male physical build, in my perception, it's more conducive to the world and being able to go out here and take the physical challenges that the world presents. Like I said, not to say that our ladies can't get out here and make that happen. But like I said, as I'm looking at the world and as I perceive the world, these are the perceptions and the generalities that I tend to make. Since men are perceived to be the leaders and the movers and the shakers of the physical world and in society, as far as physicality is responded to, it really irks me. It really puts me in a space of scratching my head when I think back to the upbringing and how these leaders as men, they taught me that, when it came to my sexual exploits and the attention I played to women in the sexual arena, and in that conquering concept, it's just taught that, go out here and you just exploit as many women as you can. And that is what makes you a man. The fact that you can go out here and you can conquer these bodies, and that you can insert yourself inside of these women physically, it's really just part of being a man. And go out here, man, and flourish. As I was taught, and a lot of the young men around me was taught, man, you're supposed to just have your way. You're supposed to go out here, man, in life and see what you want, and you're just supposed to attack. And even in the concept of being persistent, like even if a woman denies you, you're supposed to just be consistent and persistent and just keep going to that woman, and you wear her down, because you're a man. Rawr, you're a man. Yeah. That's the general consensus. You know what I'm saying? That was the general consensus.